Okay.
I'm trying to finish up what I have. Oh, I see.
This is my grandmother. I call her Bubby. She was a Holocaust survivor. And she was in, what camps were you in?
Auschwitz, Nuremberg, Meltower.
Okay, okay. So, what was your life like before the war?
Very comfortable, very nice. We had a very large family and very loving. And we were the first grandchildren, so we were very spoiled also. Everybody loved us, especially I always felt I was loved more than everybody else. Because I was born on Shavuos, and my uncle used to say, look what Hashem did. He gave us a Torah and he threw her down with it. So that was the joke that they used to play on me. And I didn't mind, as long as I got attention and a pinch in the face. So that was all good.
Where in Europe are you from?
I'm from Romania. That became, in the end of the 30s, Hungary. They had a car. Every 20 years or so, they used to switch from Hungarian to Romanian.
Okay. And how old were you when the war started?
I was a teenager, and maybe I was about 16, 17 years old. And of course, it first started with the Hungarian coming in, and they switched our life. They had new regulations. With the Romanian, life was very comfortable, very good. But the Hungarian was getting a little more difficult. They took away some license from people, like they have now the license of beer and whiskey and stuff like that. Anybody who had like a bar, they took away the license.
Okay. And how, like, what was the first, where was the first place you were sent to?
The first place, when finally the German came in 1944, before Pesach, they were there for a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you the story about the Pesach, then I was arrested. It was before Pesach, and 200 forced labor people came to our town to work on the highways, because our highways weren't as nice like here, and the Germans came in with very heavy artillery, and they had to fix these things. And so these 200 boys came to our town, and they had no place where to stay, because houses weren't that large, and big buildings were only like school and churches. So being that my father had a lumber shop, they sort of settled into our lumber shop, and they made their home there. And this was Erev Pesach. Everybody was busy with the Pesach because we had to prepare for the Seder and to get the food done. And we had our own chicken cooked. And every day my sister and I used to go to pick the eggs before Pesach and collect them to have eggs, a lot of eggs for Pesach. Mm-hmm. Potatoes were like they do now. They made like holes in the ground, and they used to put the potatoes, so in the winter you could take it out. So we knew a little things like that. We had to, when we went to collect the eggs from the chicken really didn't like when we took their eggs away. So we had to go, two of us. One went with a basket with corn and threw it around and took the chickens out from their home that they have from the coop. And the other one went with the basket and collected the eggs. So everything, like I said, as children, it was fun doing it, and we did a lot of things. So Erev Pesach, I remember the German took away our dining room. And they made like a big office. It was a big room, they made office out of it. But I don't know how it turned out that we were able to make the Seder in the dining room. And it was all set up. And I remember when the German came in and he said, "You expect to celebrate? We are in the war, and you expect to celebrate now?" Well, and I remember that he threw the candelabra down from the table. I don't know if it broke or didn't break. That I don't remember. But that day was a very busy day. And then 2 boys from the 200 slave labor came to my father for advice. They wanted to come in the next day and space up to the shul. Some of them who were frum, some weren't so frum. But the frum was, maybe half of them wanted to come to shul. And for that you needed a permit because they had like 100 people walking on the street. It was like a parade or something. So they needed a permit from the city hall. And they came to ask my father how they could get something like that. And my father said there was no problem because one of my kids will go with you because we know the mayor and we know the whole city hall. I'm very friendly with everybody because we lived across the street from the governor's mansion. A beautiful mansion with trees and gardens. And my father was very friendly with him and he knew that he could get this for the boys. Give me that. Then when my father said that one of the girls will go with you, I volunteered. I volunteered and I went with these 2 guys. They were young, married people, maybe in the 30s or so. One was a lawyer who came from a big city there with a group. And we went, and meanwhile, we were already had to wear the star, the yellow star. And as a teenager, I really didn't like to wear it. I just felt, why should they do that to me? Make me...
Why should I be different?
Yeah, but stick out, make me different. And I just took the star and I just pinned it up on my left side. And we went and we had no problem going. We made it in a few minutes to City Hall. And we went in and I told this lawyer, spoke to the mayor, assistant, and they said, "Oh, no problem." And they gave him a paper and we were out to leave. We finished. Then we went back home and as we walked on the streets, I don't know why I had a very bad feeling. And after a few minutes, everything worked itself out so fast. 2 Nazis stepped in front of us. I felt that they were following us. And the lawyer said to me, "Well, we just walked, don't worry about it." But they came in front of us and they stopped us and they said, "You are arrested."
Why?
Why? You gotta come to City Hall because you're arrested. And I got nervous and I looked at the lawyer, what shall I do? And I don't know, but I feel that Hashem put those words in my mouth. And I said, "I am not 18 yet, so I'm not going without a parent." And he said, "Fine, that's a legitimate excuse, but give me your address and we're gonna come to your house." And I look at the lawyer again and he said, "Give him the address." I give him the address and we left. But now we were rushing home already. And when I walked into the house, my mom looked at me and said, "What's the problem?" And I tell her, and she takes a needle and a thread and sew down your star the way it's supposed to be. And I sewed down one on my mother's clothes too. And before we turned around, 2 Nazis came, knocked on the door, and we came to they came to tell us that I am arrested, but this time they gave me permission to bring an adult with me. And of course, my mother was sort of prepared that that will happen. Now, when my mother and I left the house, my mother told my sister, Sylvia, run to the governor's mansion and tell him that we were arrested. That's it. And then we left, and they took us down to the middle of the town, where there was another, the governor had a brother, and he had a mansion there. And they took her over, the Germans, and that was the German headquarters now. And we went inside there, they took me into a room with my mother, and they started questioning me. And not too many questions actually, it's just that they said that you are arrested. And I said, what's my crime? Because I spoke German. And they said, you committed a terrible big crime. Your star was not sewed down the regulation way. And I said very proudly, oh, it is sewed down. And I picked up my blouse and showed him. He said, well, now you really deserve to be shot because you're making a liar out of my soldiers. And no matter what I did, he just insisted that I committed a big crime and I have to be shot for it. But as I argue with him, and I look at the window straight, I see the governor coming. So right away I started feeling better. I said, oh, the governor is coming to protect me. And the governor came in, they called out this lieutenant from the room where he was with me, and I heard very loud noises, and I heard what they said. The governor said to the lieutenant, you people invaded our country, but you have no right to pick people from the street and arrest them. It's you know, and tell them that they're going to be shot right away. Well, I don't know what else the governor said, but a few minutes later, this lieutenant came back into the room, and he sat down to his desk, and he started being very nice. And he says, okay, I'm going to put you on probation and let you go home, because this is your first defense. And you could go home, but you have to know that somebody will come every day to check on you. And if you think of escaping, there's no way. Because and everybody else will suffer for it. So he lets me go with my mother, and I remember holding my mother's hand, and we went back home. Everybody was looking from the house and behind the curtains to see what's going on there. But nobody knew what was really going on. We just came back to the house. My mother took her scissors, and my hair was like a light on the light side, and it was like long. And she cut my hair off from here and gave me a kerchief, and she said, put it on and wear it. Because the Germans were very, that was their color, blue eyes and light hair. So that was Pesach. And the night came and they started, did Agoda, and you know, we talked and we sing, and the end of, it was very sad. Everybody was just very sad to see what bad conditions we are. And my father said, Lashono Habo Yerushalayim. His tears was just rolling down his face. And it was very sad, and like he felt that this is the last, and that was the last time that we ever sat together with the family. Pesach passed by, every day somebody two Nazis came to check on me. And I know my mother was even nice to them. She was always afraid they shouldn't get some crazy ideas. And every day they came to check. And after Pesach was over, on Shabbos night, and Sunday morning, it was still dark outside. They knocked on our door. My father opened the door, and there was 4 Nazis with their guns and bayonets. And he said, "Pack up whatever you could carry out on your 2 hands. Suitcase or pillowcase or whatever you could put it, and put your keys on the table and walk out." And that's how they took us out of our house.
And where did they take you to?
They walked us to the school. School was a big building, and we were staying there for a day or 2. I really don't remember. But I know that they had to go to small towns around us to pick up. There were towns that only had like 10 Jewish people living there. So they picked up all these people and they brought them to school. And everybody, the whole neighborhood, the whole city they were calling it Judenreich, clean of Jews, without Jews. Then they walked us, older people went on wagon, and young people walked. And I don't remember how old, it was over 25 kilometers or so. And they took us, they were telling us that they are relocating us. That was the word. You'll be all right, everything will be fine. You're just going to live somewhere else, and you're going to have to work. And the older people will watch the babies, and the young people will go to work. So we thought, all right, so we're not in our own house, but it'll be okay. But when we arrived to the so-called ghetto, it was shocking, because the way we knew ghetto was that if you had a house with 3 rooms, then they put 3 families in each room, in a room. But there were no houses. It was a forest that they cut all the trees and they made barbed wire fences, and that would be our home now. There was no roof over our heads. There were no houses. There was no bathroom. There was no place where to cook. It was terrible. But the people from town, the Christian people who were good neighbors, came to see where we are. And they asked what we need, and I told them to go into the house and get blankets, and they bought some other things that we should be able to make a little hut, like a sukkah or something, but at least we should have a roof over our head. Food was bought in from the city, not a lot, because I remember the Christian people bought us bread and milk, and I don't know what else, and we had to cook rice or something, and they had to dig a hole, and like the Indians, when I saw the first Indian movies, and I saw the way they dig their holes and they cook with the pot on it, I said, that's how we were. And it was March, the weather was beautiful and rainy, and the water was just coming down, and there was no bathroom. It was really terrible. Unbelievable how people could live like that. And we just, I don't know, but it seems like we were so in shock that we didn't know what was going on. And we had Zaydeveros and my mother's sisters and brother and aunts and cousins, and we all lived there. Everybody had a little place there. And we lived there for 6 weeks, from Pesach to Shavuos. My sister Suri, who was 2 years older than me, she went with the doctor. We had a Jewish doctor, 2 Jewish doctors with us, And they went to town to the hospital to take care of our people who were there. And she went along as a helper. She wasn't a nurse, but she went along because the doctor knew her well, our whole family. And one day she comes home and she says to my parents, I could escape. What do you mean you could escape? She said, I go out every morning with the doctor. They don't even count us. And we come, and I don't just come back. So one less. And my mother said that she cannot do it. My father said, only if I go alone. They didn't want her to go by herself. And I was too childish or whatever that I said, if it's good for my parents to stay here, I stay with them. And I didn't want to escape. And we didn't escape, and we were there to show us. Meanwhile, those 200 men who were working on the streets, they were working on railroad tracks also. They were bringing a line of railroad tracks from the main train stop. And when the railroad track were all into the ghetto, then one day they came and they said, now you're ready. Anybody who wants to leave, there's going to be 2 groups. You could leave now or a week later. And my Seder said, Shana Mukam and Shana Mazel. Maybe our luck will change and it will be better where we're going to go. Well, unfortunately, it was not. But a week or 2 before we were ready to leave, on a Friday, 2 Nazis came with an order that they wanted to take my father for interrogation. They built a little hut in the forest, and they took my father there to interrogate him because they had a list from some town people that we had a very big business, that we were very well off. They took my father Friday morning, and time was flying, and he didn't come back. We didn't know what happened. Must have been around noontime when we saw another 2 Nazis walking towards our place there. And they asked them, you know, what do they do now, what they want? And they said that they came to take my mother for interrogation now. And I was very upset, and I said to him in German, I said, my mother is very sick, she had heart problems. She couldn't even walk that far. You can't go, she cannot go. So that they said, so you come with us. And now they're taking me to the interrogation place. We talked, I spoke German, and as I was walking with these 2 Nazis, I see my father sitting on the right side as I walked, near a tree, and no shoes on his feet, just sitting there and waving with his head like somebody would say no. But I really didn't know what he was waving for. So we get to the hut, and they start questioning me. They don't want nothing from me. They just want I should tell them where my father buried the gold and the silver and the money. And I said, and then I realized what my father was telling me. That he, you know, that
don't tell them.
Don't tell him. I didn't say nothing. And I said, my father didn't bury anything. He didn't have nothing. We had a business, and we just made a living from day to day. My father had an ulcers operation a couple of months ago, and he was in the hospital for a long time, and was very sick, and the doctors all took whatever we had money, they had to give to the doctors, to the hospital. And I had no knowledge. My father did not hide anything.
Who's in the kitchen? Please take out the chicken cutlets.
So
Take them out of the oven.
they were always very interested how I speak so well German. So I had to tell them the story that I was by my grandmother, who that time the main language was German. And they sent me to a teacher to learn to speak, to read and write. And then they said, take your shoes off. And I said, oh my gosh, my father didn't wear his shoes. There must have been a reason why. So I got a little bit frightened. But as I was bending down to tie my shoes, the two of them were speaking, and then he said, all right, put your shoes on. He was telling the other guy, I guess she really doesn't know nothing. And they let me go. And then when I saw my father, I didn't know what to say because we were quite a little distance away. And I went back to our hut and I told my parents what happened, and my uncle and my brother went to pick up my father. My father couldn't walk. There were blisters on his feet. They were burning him with metal, hot metal, and it was just terrible. He couldn't put on a pair of shoes. And then a week later, the Germans come and tell us that now you could leave with the train. So that's when my Zayda said, Mashana Moka, Mashana Mazel, let's leave, nothing could be worse than that. And we got on the train and we traveled for 3 days. And we did not know where we're going. But we were just hoping and praying that it won't be that bad. So we're going to go to work. After 3 days, the train stops. Now the ride in the train was an unbearable time. There was no facilities. There was just a pail in the corner. There were old people, young people, babies, crying, dying. By the time we arrived to Auschwitz and we saw that big sign, Arbeit macht frei, we had a couple dead people already there. And when they started screaming, out, 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 everybody out, fast, fast, leave everything over there, and we're going to pick it up later. And they said, but we want to bury these sick, the people who died. And they said, oh, you don't have to do that, we're going to take care of the dead people. What happened was there were Polish boys who were there already for 3 years, and they wore that striped uniform. And they spoke to us in Yiddish, and they told us, they were pretty decent because they didn't say they're going to burn them. They're going to say, we take care of them. Don't worry, you're going to get your stuff back. First, we just got to go in there. So when we went off the trains, they were men separate and women separate. I remember on the right side were the...
Oh, Weiss. Hold on. You know, separate?
Yeah, the men and the women were separate with the babies. And as you passed by, you had to make a line of five people in a line. And these Jewish boys, some of them, they really saved some people's life. So a nice young woman with a baby and said, give the baby to your mother. Give the baby to your mother. You know, so, because if she didn't give the baby, then they would put her in the group with the people who are killed.
Right.
So many of them survived like that. And as I was standing there on the train platform, I was looking if I could find my father. But he already had shaved his beard, and it was very hard to recognize people. And I couldn't see my father, couldn't see my brother, my uncle. But what I saw was a hand with a pair of shoes. And something just hit me. My father couldn't wear his shoes. That's my father. And I started waving towards him, and he seems like he understood who I was, and he just screamed back at us in Jewish, whoever survives this hell should go to Palestine. And that's how we knew that was my father. And then my mother and my sister, my aunts, they all walked 5 on the left side. And as we got those big shots, whoever they were, they took out the young people, like the teenagers and young women, to go to another group. And the other group, they're going to be taken care of. The mother will watch the baby and stuff. We had no idea where they took those people. That first night, they took us to a big hall where they shaved our hair. There were girls there sitting and standing by chairs, and you had to sit down, and with the shaving machine, they shaved your hair down. And after that, they said, now everybody take off your clothes. Just there's men there and everything. We come from such a life that was so sheltered. And now all of a sudden, just take your clothes off. Mm-hmm. So we actually were wearing 2 lines of clothes or 3, because I remember my mother saying, put on as much as you can, so you should have something. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a house robe like, they used to wear them like dresses with buttons all the way. And I knew how to sew. My father gave me tokens, gold tokens, as big as a nickel maybe, or even bigger. And he said, sew it into the button, because someday you'll be able to use that for food or whatever. And but they make us take off all those clothes. I had on my neck a little charm. It was over Moshe Rabbeinu. They used to make in those days this picture of Moshe Rabbeinu and showing how the shines from him, you know. And it was on a necklace. And one of these Polish boys said to me, give me that necklace, because if the Germans find it on you, they're going to not only take it, but they're going to kill you. Because they already said, whatever jewelry you have, put it in the box. And I gave it to him. So this way he had something. Yeah. And that wasn't enough. Start taking off more clothes, everybody, and just put it down nicely, fold it on the floor, and then later you pick it up. Mm-hmm. They were lying the constant time to us. And they were, you know, I don't even know how we really went through. We were like I don't know, mesmerized, shocked, what, because we weren't even crying or something. They took away here my clothes and stuff. And then we were, everybody sees that we were by that underwear already. And didn't want to take our underwear off. And then the Nazis were walking between the aisles, and they said, take it off or you get shot right now. So that was, I think, the lowest point in my life. And from the way we lived, so sheltered, and all of a sudden we should have to march between men there completely naked. But then they said, oh, so now comes the shower. We're gonna go in the shower, and you're all gonna have a shower, and then you get clothes and you're going to be fine. But these Polish boys were whispering to us and said, the shower are gas chambers. And the shower heads, they had a little window from the outside. First they took us into the shower room, they locked the doors on us, they gave us a little piece of soap, but later we found out that soap was made from human fat. So once we found out, we never wanted to use it again. And we started looking for the water to come. And there is no water coming. And then people started to get hysterical, screaming and knocking at the doors. And then all of a sudden the water started to come. It was such a big relief that they didn't throw gas. They used to watch in that little window that they had from the outside. When they put that gas, I forgot what that gas was called, in that little window, and they had numbers there, and they pushed one number, and then a little gas came, and people started to get drowsy and sleepy, and they didn't fall yet. They were just. Then later they pushed another button. What we found out about this, later they pushed another button, and then more gas came, and people started falling. And till everybody was on the ground, they didn't stop pushing that gas. And once they pushed it, then they took these bodies, and I have a picture with the railroad track there. They put them on these trolleys there, and they started taking off whatever they found, jewelry, and they looked in the mouth of the dead people, and if there were gold caps, they had to take them off. I know, man, your mother knows them too, who worked that shift, those jobs. And then when all this was done, we came out and they disinfect you. They had like a pump, and there's some kind of a powder that was like the disinfectant, and they sprayed on everybody that stuff, and they gave you line up again, and they gave you a dress, but not yours. Some other from other train. And sometimes you were lucky; it was fitting you, and sometimes they gave a fat girl a small dress, and a small girl a big dress. Was going a whole black market there, switching clothes. And then they walked us to Birkenau, and they put us in the blocks. Now there were 30 barracks in one camp. This was called C camp. It was the death camp, because every week Mengele came to collect money and to see who was not strong enough to work. They took them away and they killed them. Now we were on block 39, and when it started to get dark, chaos broke out. The mothers, especially the young mothers who gave up their babies, they were screaming and crying, "Where's my baby?" And there were young people who said, "Where's my mother? Where's my father? Why can't we see them?" And they were just chaos, screaming. Till one of the capos used to have a little room, before you came into the barrack, there was on the right side a little room, and that was the capos slept. And they came out, and they opened up the two big doors. The barrack had big doors, and what we saw was two chimneys with flames as big as 3 feet tall, if not bigger. And we were still crying, "Where's my sister? Where's my mother?" And she took her whistle and blew. That's what they had. If they were in trouble, they blew their whistle, then everybody got quiet. and they said, quiet. Now I'm going to tell you something. You see those two flames? That's where your loved ones are. They're already were killed.
At this point, were you separated from your mother and sister already?
Yeah. They were just my mother and sister. Just my sister and I were.
Your mother was already gone by this point?
Yes. She was already killed. Because those people who weren't left alive were right away thrown into the gas chambers and the crematorium. And she tells us, they promise you you're going to see your baby and your mother. Well, forget about it. There is no such thing. They are already in those flames. And everybody, the shock was so big. Everybody just shivered. We just couldn't imagine, you couldn't believe. She said, everything that they promised you, jobs and stuff, and to meet your loved ones, there is no such thing. They are gone and you're here. And if you want to survive, you just have to do what they tell you. That was the first night and the first introduction. And after that, we settled down. And it's funny because Tante Shoshana says, I wouldn't have gone through that. I would have just grabbed a gun from the German and kill him, and then he would kill me. But I could not stand all that abuse that you people took. So we were back in the barracks there, and every week Mengele came and collected a couple of weaker children and younger ones. I mean, the young children who were short, we used to bring bricks and put it under their feet. You know, there were 5 people in a row, so we used to put them in the middle and put the 2 bricks under their feet, so they should be as tall as the rest of them. And that's how they survived. Now that girl, I know that girl who was 13 years old who survived. My sister was higher, was 13, but she was a skinnier girl, like really, you know. So I guess when they looked at her, they saw that she was a child. And we were there. Every week we had selections, and sometimes we were separated from my sister because I had blue eyes and my sister was dark complexion. And one day they came that they want only blue-eyed girls to select. But after the day was gone and before they took us away, we always used to get together again. Somebody said, you want to switch your sister for my sister? And, you know, we made deals. And we were there for 5 months.
In Auschwitz?
In Auschwitz. The summer came and the weather was very humid and very hot. The work wasn't really heavy. The only